What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and to another WNBA video. We got a two-game slate to dive into for Saturday, May 24th, so we'll break down and analyze each of those games. We'll talk about which way that I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread, and we'll also talk about any player props that I found in those games that I like, and any plays that I put in officially myself. Make sure you check down there into the pinned comment. You're going to find a link down there that'll send you over to the Guy Boston Sports website. That's where all of my final plays will live for free. But before we dive into these contests, let's go ahead and take a look back. We're gonna look back to Thursday. Thursday's picks. We weren't able to recap those in last night's video, so we'll go ahead and recap those here today. And you can see as they pull up right here, man, we go 1-1 on the night, right? We took the Fever on the money line and put 3/4 of a unit on that one, and they do come from behind to beat Atlanta. And then we took the Liberty in the Sky, a total under 162.5. And my reason behind that was the lack of offense from Chicago, right? Well, New York said lack of offense from Chicago. We got all the offense, and they crushed that number. They set the record for three-pointers made in that game, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later here as we're going to go over the Liberty in today's slate. But 1-1 on the night. Break even, right? Don't lose any units. We don't gain any units either. So let's go ahead and dive into today's action. Let's go ahead and try to gain some units today. Go ahead and smash that like button down there for me, guys, if you can, and hit subscribe if you have not already. Now let's jump into the mix. Like I said, we got the New York Liberty. That's going to be our first game. They're taking on the Indiana Fever. It's a 1 p.m. tip-off. Man, I kind of want to go over this one last, right? Because, this is the game of the day. But we'll go over it now, man. We'll keep them in order. This is the 1 p.m. tip-off game. Liberty are 2.5-point favorites right now with a total sitting at 169.5. Like I said, man, what a game we have in store for us here as the defending champs are going to head into Indiana, take on a Fever team that reworked their entire roster around that big three of Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. Got all the hype coming into this one, man, and rightfully so. This is going to be the second of two straight on the road for New York, and then they head back home after this for two at the house against the expansion Valkyries. Indiana is back home here after a trip to Atlanta, and then they're going to head right back out on the road to Washington after this game here. Looking at these two head-to-head, the Liberty have dominated this matchup in years past. They won 9 of the last 10. But the Fever did take the last matchup between these two last season at home. And in years prior, man, Indiana was definitely in rebuilding mode for quite some time. And looks like they have, finished the rebuild, right? Definitely look to be contending this season. Indiana blew the brakes off the sky in their opener before coming back down to earth in a tough 1-point loss at home to Atlanta. They come into this one, though, having followed that loss up with a win on the road over that same Dream Team. And it took everything they had, right? Sophie Cunningham, she made her debut for the Fever in that one, and she came up clutch to finish out that game, including a key stop down the stretch to help put the game on ice. Atlanta showed the formula, though, however, for frustrating this Indiana team, man. We know that the Fever are an undersized team, and the Dream played to this weakness. They fed BG, they fed Bree Jones in the post. They let them go to work. Like I said, man, you got to, I said this in the last video, covering the Fever and the Dream when they were going into their rematch, right? You got to give Natasha Howard, you got to give Aaliyah Boston credit. They definitely played well defensively with Atlanta, like I said, just feeding those two. But as a smaller team, man, you offset that by getting out in transition and playing fast, right? And the Dream slowed these games down as much as they could whenever they could. And these two things alone were enough to give the Fever some trouble. Now, facing a Liberty team with a ton of size and length, I think they could see some similar issues here, unfortunately, for the Fever. The biggest difference I can see in this matchup as opposed to with Atlanta, I'm not sure New York is going to want to try to muck this game up in the same way that Atlanta did, right? And play at a slower tempo. Like they thrive in transition and finishing at the rim. Their bigs can all operate out of the post or from the perimeter, and they are both willing passers as well. This team is just super difficult to defend, man, because of the many ways that they can beat you offensively. Through their first two games, we've seen them average 95 points per game, average, tops in the W. They are shooting 51% from the field, 41% from deep. Both of those are leading the league now currently. They just set the record for most three-pointers made, like I said earlier in the recap, man. 19 total threes this past Thursday against Chicago. In Chicago, too. Did it on the road. And then an underrated stat, man. But if you watch these games, you're going to see how important it becomes in crunch time, right? And these ladies start missing them. Free throws. Free throws, man. The most basic thing that they teach us when we first start playing basketball. Man, I'm just shocked at how many. We even saw Caitlin Clark miss a couple of them, right? In that Fever Dream game. Just shocked how many of them I see miss in big moments. Liberty are shooting the second fewest free throws in the league, but they're shooting them efficiently nonetheless, man, 89%, and that is also tops in the W. New York is second in assists per game, just behind the Lynx at 26 assists per contest. And like I've said about those Lynx, you watch the Liberty, it's much of the same, man. It's watching team basketball being played to damn near perfection, right? They make the right passes, they don't force looks, they always seem to find the open shooter, the open cutter. I really, really enjoy watching this Liberty team play basketball. But man, I can say the same exact thing about the Fever too, right? When they're on, and the synergy is flowing between them, it's the same thing. They're really, really fun to watch. And then when you look at both of these teams from a net rating perspective, it's interesting, man. They sit at first and second. You know what I mean? The Fever come in at 16.7, second in the W. The Liberty sitting with a rating of 23.1, first overall. We do see the Liberty sitting at first in terms of effective field goal and true shooting percentage, while the Fever have been less efficient overall than New York, coming in at fifth and sixth in those categories, respectively. I mean, I just think end of the day, New York is going to feast in the paint at the rim. They've done so in both games so far that they played this year to open up the year. While Indiana's numbers, number wise, that they've held their own in that regard so far. But you look at opposing teams' points in the paint, and they're giving up the fewest in the W. And then in terms of shooting percentage allowed from inside the restricted area, they're giving up the second lowest shooting percentage overall. But with that said, man, like I said, I just don't think. I actually know, you know what I mean, that Chicago doesn't boast not only the same interior presence as the Liberty, but also the same perimeter shooting as New York. And the Liberty are going to look to, play you inside out all day long, take advantage of whichever area, you're showing your weakness in, because they can beat you, like I said, at all three levels, just anywhere on the court. Atlanta, while they played through the post, yes, both BG and Bree Jones don't really look to play right at the rim, right? They're typically posting up and then looking to fade away. And you can kind of see that, looking at the numbers as well for Indiana. They're more middle of the pack in terms of shooting, coming from in the paint outside of that restricted area from their opposition. So, all in all, I gotta side with the champs here in what I think will be their first true test, and I think they know this as well. They're gonna want to come into Indiana and leave with a statement win, you know what I mean, and kind of put the league on notice. And they have all the tools to make that happen. So I caught them early on the money line at minus 122. It started jumping around, man. Got up to like minus 150 something as well, and then kind of went back down a little bit. So definitely some movement there with that line, but caught it at minus 122. You have to see what you can catch it at. I'd be comfortable taking the liberty on the points too, or laying the points at 2.5. I wouldn't want to get too extreme if that line starts going up, which I don't think it will. I think that there's going to be money coming in on both sides. People love to bet on the Fever, right? And they're a damn good squad. I would not be surprised even if the Fever win this game, but I do think that that New York has what it takes, and I think that New York is on a mission. In the games that I've seen from them so far this season, although a small sample size, man, they just look to be a tier above everyone else. Even Minnesota to a degree. I think that Minnesota is the closest thing, but man, I'm kind of worried about my futures bet, man, taking the Lynx with the to win it all. New York just looks so damn tough, but it is still early. It is still early, but I do like them here in this one. Then looking at the total, you almost feel inclined to look at an over here with the pace that these two have played at to open this year. The Liberty have played at the fourth fastest pace, while the Fever are playing at the second fastest. And they have both been putting up a ton of points as well. But we can't skip over the fact that the Liberty are sitting at third in terms of defensive rating. Indiana sitting at first. The Fever are holding opponents to the second lowest shooting percentage, while the Liberty's defense is first in the W in that regard. So this one I'm truly back and forth on as far as the total, right? And I'll lean over, but I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever if both of these teams turn up defensively and this becomes a slower, more physical battle that leads us to an under. So I'll most likely stay off of the total here, but I'm leaning over if I had to choose. And a prop that I'd be looking at in this one would be Natasha Cloud of the Liberty, looking at her points and assists over 21.5. And we can get that for a good price, minus 106 at FanDuel. Now, we can see in her last five, she is crushing that, right? Hitting at an 80% rate. We can see her going well above that line in the first two games with the Liberty as well. These back here, everything prior to that is going to be with the Mercury from last season. But still, like I said, hitting that line and hitting it well this season to open up the year as well. We can look back further into last season as well and see that she was hitting it at a 70% rate in the last 10 games. So definitely like that for Natasha Cloud. And head to head with the Fever, we can see that both these last games, man, 2 games in a row. Now, obviously, we're landing right there on the hook, but she is clearing that mark still. And then we can see this insight from Outlier. She has exceeded this 21.5 points plus assist in 7 of her last 8 games overall. So we love to see it, man. 88% hit rate. Like I said, that's Natasha Cloud, her points and assists over 21.5. Then for our second and final game on the slate, we have a 3 p.m. tip-off. Dallas Wings taking on the Atlanta Dream. Dream are 5.5-point favorites. Total sitting at 168.5. That's a second game of a 4-game road trip for Dallas, and they come into this one 0-3 on the year so far. But I've said it about these Wings so far. They are showing flashes, man, and they do have some talent over there on that side of the ball. The Dream, on the other hand, they're going to be home for the second game of a 3-game homestand. They are 1-2, and both of those losses being close defeats at the hands of the Mystics and the Fever. The Wings bring a 1-day rest advantage into this one, and we finally saw Enrique Gumbawale begin to break out of her slump and actually get some buckets, man. She had been ice cold. She shot 40% from the field and 5 made threes on 38% shooting for a season high 21 points in Dallas's last outing. They played the Lynx tough in that game, right? They forced Minnesota into 17 turnovers. The Wings just weren't able to capitalize on those, man, only scoring 10 points off of those turnovers, and they were out-rebounded as well by a large margin, 43-27. They were crushed in transition. They gave up 22 points, and although they forced Minnesota into more turnovers overall, the Lynx were able to put up 21 points off of the Wings turnovers alone. And Dallas led by 10 early in that game before Minnesota gained control, but, the Lynx are a title contending team, and once again, Dallas played them tough. The Dream are coming off back-to-back hard-fought games against the Fever, and Atlanta has been in tight contest after tight contest to open up this season. The 3 games played so far have all been decided by single digits. In fact, there's only been a combined 10 points total separating the winners and losers of each of the Dreams games so far to this point in the season. And they are still down Jordan Canada, but the team did announce that she is expected to make a full recovery, and they anticipate her joining in team activities in the coming weeks. So that will definitely help. But in the meantime, Papao has definitely stepped up and played well in her absence, especially for a rookie. But I can't help but think, man, Atlanta may be 2-1 or maybe even 3-0 with a healthy Jordan Canada in the lineup, as they're definitely missing her playmaking ability. And they're missing it at the end of the games, man. They were just simply struggling to close out games. They've held leads late into each of these fourth quarters, including this last game. I think they were up by 4 with like a little over 2 minutes to play. They just can't seem to finish the job, and that's, twice now. And the one game that they did finish the job, they went flat those final 4 minutes of play and were held to just 2 points on 0 made shots from the field. And they let Indiana crawl all the way back, and they escaped. They escaped with a 1-point win. In a game that they controlled the whole game. They were up by double digits, you know what I mean? So we've seen that. We saw that against Washington. They jumped out to a big lead, let Washington crawl back into that game and beat them. You know what I mean? And then the same thing with Indiana. Statistically, these teams are really kind of mirroring each other in just about every category. Both of them are living middle of the pack in terms of shooting percentage, rebounds, assists. Look, man, I may be crazy, right? But I think I like Dallas in this spot. They keep getting a little better and a little closer with each game, and I'm getting a feeling that this may be where they break through. Now, maybe they don't secure a dub, right? But with the Dream struggles down the stretch, I'm not sure that I would want to lay points with them. So yeah, man, call me crazy, but I'm going to lean the Wings plus the points in this one. And then as far as the total goes, 168.5 just feels stupid high for two teams that aren't particularly lighting it up from deep. Both are shooting just 31% from beyond the arc, and the Dream are putting up the second most attempts per game still, despite shooting just 31% from beyond the arc. So that's a lot of missed threes to make up for, right? To get up to this 168.5. I'm just not sure that I can see that. Both teams are trying to play at a more up-tempo pace. I'm just not sure that these offenses on either side are bringing in enough firepower for us to see an over. So I'm looking at the under. And again, guys, at the time of recording, no player props available for this one. So anything that I do find on this game, make sure you check down there into the pinned comment. I'll add it into the link, and I'll give a little explanation of why I like that play down underneath that pick. So make sure you check that pinned comment out, man. Especially once we get closer to tip off, they've been coming out with these player props either late at night or some of the games. It's like mere hours before the games tip off where I'm finally seeing some props. So But that is gonna wrap us up, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I hope you found the content helpful and useful, and if you did, please do not forget to smash the like button down below and hit subscribe if you have not already. That's gonna do it, man. Hope you guys have a great night. Hope you guys all cash out. I'll see you back tomorrow.